And there we go. Okay, so we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. But for now, let's go over some stuff that you guys have not done so far. Let's open up scene 2. Now, in this scene, we have these things, the platforms are made out of tiles. And if you go over here, you can see that whenever you construct your scene, you have the choice of adding tiles or actors. Essentially what the tiles are their preset bits of code. And generally tiles are 32 by 32 pixels. And they come preset with where you could collide with them, and they usually come in sets where you can add them together and create a larger picture. So for example, well, I didn't want to do that. No. Yeah, I had the wrong thing on there. So let's see if I can undo that. There we go. So what it lets you do is it lets you construct things from little bits. Think of it as Legos or construction blocks, that kind of thing. So where do you get these tiles? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to Stencil Forge. Okay? And Stencil Forge is kind of the online clearinghouse. It's where you could download other people's games, you could download resources. There's a lot of things you can get from Stencil Forge. Okay? So for example, if I go to games, here's a whole list of games that people have uploaded that I could download, and I can look at how they did whatever it is they're doing. For example, Ragdoll Test. It's not really a game, but it shows you how you can add physics to your game, that kind of thing. So if you want to learn more on your own, you could do that by going to Stencil Forge and looking at things that other people have done. But what we're going to look at is we want to look at tile sets. And people have added all kinds of different tile sets. For example, here's an action RPG one. If I open that up, okay, essentially what it is it's a little RPG like Zelda or something like that. And this is all made up of little blocks of graphics that you can add to your game. Now to add that, all you would have to do is click download, and it would actually download it to your game. So let's download this one. And it's going to download it to the game I have open. Okay? So let's just save everything I got there. It could be the top view of a house. It could be anything you want it to be. Okay? So if I go back to my dashboard, under tile sets, you notice I now have 5 tile sets. Okay? And here's the one I just downloaded. If I open that, it lets me see all the different bits of graphics that I can add. So I could construct any kind of fence I want by using all these corner posts, straight posts, vertical and horizontal posts. Okay? If I just want to add a green field in the middle of my game, or the middle of my scene, I could construct a field using these tiles here. So you get the idea. So let's go back to our scene. Okay? And if I go to tiles, I can now go to any of these tile sets. Let's say I want to add this rock here. I'll click on that, and I'll add it just like I do anything else. Okay? So by downloading tile sets, it allows you to add not only graphics to your game, but your actors will interact with the tiles, just like they would another actor. So let's get rid of these. I don't really want to keep those on there. Okay, you could stop me. If you have a question at any time, you could stop me. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to look at these tiles that I've already added. And if you look at the tile set, you'll notice that when I click on it, every tile set has collision bounds. And what does the collision bound mean? Boundary, Rochelle? You put your hand up. Oh, so you weren't paying attention at all. You just happened to. Jackson?
Where the black would actually hurt the little white guy would touch the block.
Yes. Well, it actually, what it does is, it allows you to determine where in the tile it will register a collision. So for example, if I only wanted a collision to register on the very top part of the tile, I might choose something like this. Okay? So that way, if someone hits the left side or the top of the tile, a collision will register. Otherwise, it won't.
Why wouldn't you want to register at all, Zaz?
Because sometimes it does weird things. Let's say you want to be able to have it so, some platform games, you can stand below the platform, you can jump up, and then you land on the platform.
Yeah.
Okay, if that tile had set to register a collision on the bottom, you'd never be able to jump up onto it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's different reasons why you may want that to happen.
But like in this game, on scene 2, is a collision all the way around because you can't go.
Right.
You can't go through
Hitting
it.
the spikes
Right.
is like a block.
Yes. So for basically this game and for most of your games, you're going to want to leave it at square. Sometimes you're going to want to say no collisions. Okay, let's say you have you want to create a field. Okay, say in your RPG game, you want to add a big grassy field. You may want to set all the tiles. So let's actually look at that. If I open up this tile set, if I just want these tiles to be background graphics, I may set all these tiles to no collisions. So my actor's never going to interact with them. It's just going to be like having a graphic in the background. Okay? Any questions on tile sets so far? Okay. So let's go back. And go back to dashboard.
Mr. Ruff, I think
Yeah.
that did something.
Okay. When we get to that, you can explain it. Okay. So let's look at the actor types, the actor behaviors, and go through this code. Okay. So a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Now, what's the created code used for? Whenever you have an actor that has a created code, what does that do?
When you first start, that's what happens.
Right, when the actor's created, these things happen. It runs only one time when the actor's created. Now, when is an actor created? When the scene starts. So if you look back at your scene here, whenever I load a scene, let's say I load scene 2, it creates all these actors. It creates my exit portal, it creates Zix. So when I go from scene 2 to scene 3, what happens to the actors in scene 2? They don't reload, they disappear or they get killed. They actually erases them from the game. So even though in scene 3, you may load up the exact same actor, what you're doing is you're actually destroying or killing the actor in scene 2 and created a new version in scene 3. So when this actor loads up in scene 3, what's the first bit of code that runs?
Set on ground to true.
No. Well, yes, it runs that, but that's part of what code? Created. So when you go from scene to scene, it recreates the actor, which is going to run the created code every single time.
So his life gets reset.
Ah. So remember yesterday I said there was a glitch, or on Monday? If that's true, we have this game variable to keep track of his health from scene to scene. So if in scene 2 he loses 3 health, when he goes to scene 3, we want to make sure that his health is remembered as equal to 7. But what's the problem, Jackson?
It resets it.
Right. If I recreate the actor every time you go to a scene,
This thing goes back to
it
10.
resets it to 10 every single time.
Or if you want it to reset
No,
Then that would be fine. Then you wouldn't need a game variable. You could just add a regular attribute like the on ground. So what could we do to make sure that this doesn't happen? I'll give you a hint. It starts with an if statement.
If scene 2,
You got it. If scene 2 what?
then set, set the health to, oh wait,
You're on the right track.
oh, set scene health to scene before.
Oh, so
Or, well, yes and no. You made it more complicated than you had to. But if, so if I go to here, so I only wanted to set the health equal to 10 on the very first scene. Okay? I'm going to want to check to see if scene name, whoops, I hate it when it does that. Stupid game. Okay? If scene name is equal to, and what's my first scene? Well, my first scene is scene 1, but the first scene that this actor shows up in is scene 2. Okay? So if I add this if statement, it's going to say if scene name is equal to scene 2, which is this scene, set the health equal to 10. So according to this code, when I finish scene 2 and it kills off the actors, and I go to scene 3, is it right? It will not reset the code to 10 because the scene is no longer named scene 2.
Let's just do it specific to scene 2 now.
Correct. Okay? So let's save that. So let's go down and check key down.
How should we be doing it?
I'm gonna post all this online. I'm recording as we do this. I'm recording it, so
Well, do we have
you'll be able to watch it later. You can change it now if you want, or you can just wait till later. Say again.
Do we have to change it?
You don't have to, but if you want a decent grade, you might want to. Okay? So let's look at this again. Throughout the game, I always want to know what key is being pressed down. Okay? And I want to keep track of that. So what's this kind of variable called again, where we check to see whether something is true or false? What's that called? Starts with a B. Bool.
Hooligan.
Boolean. Okay? And again, a Boolean variable can have how many values?
3.
No? No. 2, yes. Or process of elimination, you got it. And what are the 2 variables that a Boolean variable can have? What are the... No. Well, look at the screen. What are the 2 types of values that a Boolean variable can have?
Where's the Boolean?
Look at the screen.
I see it. False and true.
True and false, correct. So a variable can either be true or false. So at any point in the game, I could check whether the idle key, the jump key, the right key, the left key, the up key, I could check to see whether they're being pressed down or not simply by looking at the value of that variable. Okay? So that's what these are used for. And a lot of times that's how you use variables. You just want to keep track of the state of something, whether something is happening or not happening, true or false. Okay, screen location, you guys should understand that by now. Now, what is this on ground thing? Anybody have any idea what this on ground thing means?
That he doesn't fall through the ground.
Not that he doesn't fall through the ground, but
When he's on the ground, this is what
correct. When he's on the ground, Because if you keep track, if you remember when you play your game, you could jump and you can fly around. So you want to be able to keep track of whether your character's in the air or on the ground. So for example, when your character jumps, do you want to be able to, when he jumps and your character's in the air, do you want to be able to press the right key and suddenly in midair have him go right or left?
No.
No. Okay? So when your character jumps, you want to make sure that they can't hit a key and change the trajectory. Okay? The other part of the game is Zix flies around.
Can you say when, not on ground? So say like you could do a jumping thing where, you know, games where once you're in the air, then you can kind of like use
Yes.
the arrow keys to make them go faster in the air. So
Absolutely. If you wanted to make it so you could change the trajectory in the air, you could do that, but you'd still use the same variable. And this on ground, what kind of variable is this on ground again?
I'm not sure.
Remember, it starts with a B again?
Boolean.
Boolean. So on ground can be, what are the two values that on ground can
True or
have?
false?
True or false.
Oh, so if you say if on ground false.
Then, or if not, excuse me, if not on ground, then that's when you can allow these other things to happen.
Where do you find not or false?
That's in flow, just like you do here. Not.
Oh,
Okay? So what I'm checking for right here, in this bit of code where my guy moves around on the ground, the first thing I checked is to see if my character is on the ground. Okay? If he's not on the ground, if he's flying around like he does in the last scene, or if he's jumping, none of this code can execute. Okay? That keeps the user from screwing around with your game. But if he is on the ground, what does it mean if right? What does that mean in this game? What am I checking to see? If right is true means what? He's moving right, which means the user is what? Pressing the right arrow key. Okay? And that's when we switch the animation to the right animation and we set the velocity. Okay? And it works the same way with left. If it says otherwise, if left, that means what? So if left is true, he's pressing the left arrow key, and so on and so on. Okay? Now the other option, if your character is not on the ground, he must be
In the air.
in the air. Okay? So, we're checking two things. What does this Zix rockets thing mean?
When you use a rocket, then
When he has rockets. Okay? And if we look at our created, okay? Where can our character have rockets?
Scene 4.
In scene 4. So what we do is we have this game variable called Zix rockets, and it has an initial value of false. So the only scene where our character could fly around is going to be in scene 4. So when we say move in air, this code, if you look at this, if up is true and Zix rockets is true, what's the only scene where this code can execute? Scene 4. Okay? So by checking two variables, I could make what happens more specific. So if Zix rockets are true and I've pressed up, what does that mean? It means I'm flying up. So if I'm flying up in the air, what should I do with the variable on ground? False. So the very first thing, in order to make sure everything works in my game, I always have to keep track of whether my character is on the ground or in the air. So if my character's in the air, the first thing I want to do is set the on-ground variable to false. So that makes sure that in this code, can this code ever execute then? If my character's in the air? No. So it's very important that you keep track of your variables and make sure they're have the right values. Okay? Yes.
If you go back to that mid on ground thing,
Mhm.
what happens? What would happen if you put that into
On air.
the yeah.
That's actually a good question. So Thomas is asking me, what happens if I take this code and put it here? The answer is, it actually makes more sense to combine these two chunks of code. You could actually take these two chunks of code and combine them into one big chunk. The only reason I didn't do that is because it's easier to explain when I split them up. So I split them up like this, so it's easier to explain to you how this whole thing works.
Well, yeah, but then I was really kind of asking, like, if you took that code, this
Yeah.
one, and then moved it to 6 rockets, what would happen?
Ah, that's actually what Nick was asking. So let's say in your game you do want to be able to have the guy move when he's in the air. Correct? Okay, after you've jumped or something. Then you can combine the code like this. But in our game, you still can press left, up, down, and right. But what's the difference? When my guy is flying through the air, I want up, down, left, and right to behave differently than when he's on the ground. And so if you look at it, you'll notice if right means, so let's look at this. If not on the ground, what does not on ground mean? Where's the character? He's in the air. And 6 rockets, meaning in scene 4, if both of those things are true, I can look at this code. So let's say these things are true, and I check this next thing. If right. So if right means what? Michael?
Pressing the right arrow key.
Right, the user is pressing the right arrow key, mean they want to go right. But because I'm in the air, I want the character to behave differently than when he's on the ground. So if you look, do I change the velocity here? No. I do this different thing where I just push him gently in a certain direction. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? So one of the reasons these things are split up is if he's in the air, the right key does something different than the right key does if he's on the ground. Okay? And that's what all this here is.
You want that putting this, if not on the ground, just right under it?
Yes. So you're on the right track. You're going to have to play around with it a little more, but that's how you could combine these two chunks of code by doing something like that. Okay? So jump. Now this other thing, what's the other way that our character can get in the air? Okay, if he's not in scene 4, we want to let him jump. So do we want our character to be able to jump when he's in midair?
No.
No, we only want him to be able to jump when he's on the ground. So that's why I'm checking to see if on ground is true. Okay? And then we only want him to jump if the jump key is being pressed down. So that's why I'm checking these two things. If on ground is true and jump is down is true, I then do this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Class of,
Oh, is class over already?
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Uh,
We'll stop there
that's
and
the
we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. Your question?
if you just had jump, would you just like keep jumping in
Yes.
the air?
Okay.
And it's like if you change it to 255, it jumps the same as it, right?
So if you change the degrees, you would change the direction that he jumps in.
And
Yes.
it'll jump the same as this, right?
So,
Yes and no, because the force is the same, but if your angle is different, okay, so if you make the angle shallower when he jumps, he's not going to go as far than if it's higher. Okay?
right here. Do I have to like assign this to like a boolean to seams? Like
Okay.
seams not on ground true?
Let me look at that. Let me look at that in a second.